Now, over 1 million Palestinian civilians taking shelter in the South Gazan city of Rafah are preparing for Israel's latest offensive.
It comes amid growing international pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to exercise restraint. Joining us now, former British Army officer Colonel Richard Kemp. Richard, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Rosie and I have been talking about this all morning. Whatever stance you have, there are over 1 million people who have moved south who now face the same thing that happened to the north. Optics-wise, for Benjamin Netanyahu, when you look around the world, the pressure is certainly cranking up on him, and quite rightly so. Would you agree?
Well, it's right that people should be concerned about the likelihood of a fairly high number of civilian casualties in Rafah. But I don't think what anybody says around the world really matters much, except for what the United States say, because, of course, Israel is dependent to an extent on the United States. And if the pressure on Israel from the US becomes intolerable, then that might affect what Israel does. But short of that, I think, the IDF have no choice, really, other than to advance into Rafah. If they don't do that, then pretty much all of the military operations that have been conducted in Gaza so far will have been completely wasted, because it will enable Hamas, the remnants of Hamas, to continue to exist, to recover, and to present a threat again to Israel. So tragic though it is, unfortunate though the civilian casualties will be, and there will be some, Israel really has no choice other than to deal with this problem.
I think that isn't a view shared by the EU, by the US, by the UK, who are saying there needs to be a plan for the civilians before you conduct this type of operation, because it's looking in the world's terms, it's not justifiable for the sheer volume of civilian deaths.
Yeah, but the world doesn't face the threat from Hamas that Israel faces, and therefore it's not of such enormous concern to the US, Europe, the EU, the UN, and other people as it is to Israel. And I think we shouldn't forget as well that two things, really. One is that, of course, Israel is not going to conduct a significant military operation in Rafah without doing all it can to minimize civilian casualties. It simply is not going to. And that what's happened so far in the war shows that, with a relatively, I mean, it's a terrible number of civilian deaths there, but compared to many other conflicts, it's significantly lower in terms of the civilian combatant death ratio. So it's just unavoidable when you have an enemy that deliberately hides among the civilian population.
I wanted to pick you up on that, Richard, because
the population has its weapons.
Well, we haven't actually said that this morning, and we've quite rightly talked about the displacement of these over 1 million people. There are apparently, talking earlier to Yotam Kofino, 4 battalions of Hamas, the terrorist cell, still inside Rafah. Should we turn this round and not in any way justifying, but explain to people that they hide within these civilian communities, and that's what militarily makes this such a difficult and horrific process to go through? Would that be fair?
Yes, it's absolutely fair. And they're not just hiding within the civilian population. Hamas's tactics and their strategy, in fact, is based on trying to force Israel to kill as many of their civilians as they can. They're not just using them as human shields, they're actually using them as human sacrifices. They want Israel to kill their civilians because they want the world to condemn Israel, and actually they want the world to stop Israel from doing what it has to do. And you can see how that works. It's been working very well in the last few days as the build-up to an attack on Rafah unfolds.
It just talks about the changing strategy and tactics in warfare, because that is an extremely effective strategy from Hamas, which means there needs to be potentially maybe more sophisticated responses from Israel. Because Israel ideally wants to conduct this war and this campaign with the support of the international community, not losing them.
Completely agree.
You're absolutely right. And of course, Israel, I think, I'm in Israel now. I've been into Gaza on numerous occasions since the ground war began. I've got a very good insight, I think, into the sophistication of Israel's efforts to destroy Hamas while trying to minimize civilian casualties. And they are extremely effective, and they're very sophisticated. And frankly, I've not heard anybody making any suggestions, realistic suggestions, about how they can do it better. If anyone has those suggestions, I'm sure Israel would welcome them. But the reality is that there is simply no choice. There's no choice other than to attack and destroy Hamas in Rafah. That is the simple fact. And countries like Egypt, who actually, beside Israel, probably potentially stand to suffer the most as a result of Israel not destroying Hamas. Countries like Egypt don't say that Israel mustn't carry out this operation. Their major concern is that the many Gazan civilians spill over into Egypt, and they've reinforced their border.
Let's be honest, Richard, we have to end, but maybe Egypt should play their part and open their border and take those people. Maybe that would help the situation. Colonel Richard Kemp, as ever, thank you so much. Really interesting take on this.